I should add a Walkman to your police belt. That would be hysterical.
I got enough things trying to pull my pants down mid-show right now.
Welcome to the Thank You Places podcast, celebrating the art of theater and the amazing people who make it happen.
Join us as we sit down to talk about our experiences, the shows we see, and what's happening on the local theater scene, right here in Springfield, Missouri.
Today brings us to the end of our two-part series on mine and Nathaniel's current project, Urinetown, the musical.
We'll be unpacking this hilarious show's rather dark themes, and how Noel and I translated those themes into our work.
Thank you for tuning in, and enjoy the show. Places!
Thank you, Places!
This is the Thank You Places podcast. Welcome, everybody. I'm Allison. And these are my co-hosts,
Noel
And Nathaniel.
So, today we are diving into the world of Urinetown yet again, which opened this weekend. And so Noel and Nathaniel are right in the middle of the run of the show. How's that going?
At this point,
good,
my
actually.
job is done.
Yay!
Except like minor repairs, and so I'm so just
like a weight off your shoulders.
cathartic.
Yeah.
So,
Sure.
but Nathaniel's
My
performing,
job is not
so-
done.
Your job is not
My job
done.
is not done.
Oh, man.
We had opening night last night. By the time this releases, we'll have done 2 weekends of performances.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Congrats.
That's why if there's mascara in my eye, that's why.
There probably is. Alrighty, so gonna give some just quick info about Springfield Contemporary Theater, which we'll probably refer to from this point on as SCT. It's a lot less of a mouthful.
Syllables.
And so SCT gave its first public performance at the Vandevort Hotel in 1995. Did you guys know that?
Mm-hmm.
No.
I learned that last night.
I didn't. Okay. I also learned it last night. So I thought that was really interesting. So they've been going for almost 30 years now. So it's really cool. Local theater here in Springfield. And they have recently claimed the historic Fox Theater as their permanent residence. Yay!
Yay!
They bounced around a bit before that, I think, to different venues, but they're gonna do some renovations, and that's gonna be their permanent home, and that's really exciting.
Several years of renovations planned, from
yeah,
what I understand.
but that's really exciting.
Yeah, they're gonna completely. I mean, the building itself has been in dire need of reservations.
It's been a
for
theater.
while.
It's been a church. It's been several
But
different
yeah,
things.
they're gonna completely transform that
Yeah.
building.
That's
It's
exciting.
already looking a lot better. Like, we
Really?
just put up a new psych,
Yeah.
and that,
Mhm.
it's beautiful.
It'll be a great venue, yeah, once they kind of...
just some updates.
Just
and
give us some
things.
updates. Yeah, it's going to
Yeah.
be
But
great.
it's a very solid structure.
Yeah.
so.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Very much.
Yeah.
So SCT has actually done this production of Urinetown before, 16 years ago. And they're using some of the same costumes, some of the same props, and they're also using the same actor for Little Sally. And I have just been slightly curious about how that's been going. After 16 years, you probably wouldn't have the script still memorized, but I don't know. How much did she have to do?
I don't think she had to do a lot of character work.
Sure, she
Like,
had already
her
kinda
voice
figured
was
that out.
already there
Sure.
for Little Sally and everything. So it's because, she's supposed to be playing a small child. So she has
Yeah,
a
sure.
little baby voice that she talks in the entire time. And it didn't take her very long to jump back into that
Sure.
and things. But
Awesome.
Yeah.
That's very cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm excited to see her as
She's
Little Sally,
fantastic.
It's a lot of fun.
Yeah.
A lot of
All
fun.
right, we're going to talk a little bit about the history of Urinetown. I did a little bit last podcast, but I'm going to dive deeper into more of the literary themes and that kind of stuff this time. Just to recap, Urinetown debuted at the New York Fringe Festival in May of 2001, and then made its way to off-Broadway and eventually Broadway in just 5 months, which is very cool. Urinetown takes place in the future when a 20-year drought has led to a water shortage and a government ban on free use of public toilets, and really any toilets for that matter. In the chaos, a hero rises up and a revolution takes place. But at what cost?
Much cost.
Why did I listen to my heart?
Much cost.
Much cost.
Why did I listen to that cad? I think that's one of my favorite lines. that Rebecca
Cad.
sings.
So many
Cad.
I don't know if I've ever heard that word before.
His name is also Cladwell, so it
Cad.
kind
Yeah.
of...
It's kind
There's a
of
lot of words in the script
Yeah.
that are like not our common language.
Sure.
Like they're real words. It's not like a Dr. Seuss made up thing, but
Yeah.
it's just uncommon words.
Not our vernacular.
That's either for a rhyme scheme or just for sheer absurdity.
Sure.
That like
Well,
I
like,
think
what
about
is
this often. Sorry, side note. Where, like, since we've been involved with the show, like, I've been reading the script, doing the stuff, I've been at rehearsals, you're actually doing the show. Like, we know the lyrics and the words and the lines so well that we know what people are trying to articulate.
Sure.
Especially during fast-paced music. It makes me wonder how much I have missed seeing shows, like, once. And, like, the nuances of the words and stuff.
Yeah.
Because, like, if you're listening to... Okay, Nonstop from Hamilton.
Yeah.
When everyone sings different lines, like there's lines that I still don't know what
Yeah.
they're saying. And so I feel privileged that I know what all of the lines are in Urinetown
Sure.
because every single line has something like has a reason for being
Definitely. That's part of the magic of being in a show. You get to know it so intimately.
there. Yeah.
And things that you would otherwise miss. Yeah. But so of course this musical is a comedy. But if you were to strip that away, and even so with the comedy, it actually has very dark themes and mirrors a lot of social issues. So we're going to dive into that just a little bit. We are going to go into the themes first, and then we're going to talk about your guys' roles, specific roles in the play. So, musical. I hate that I just said play.
Come
That's
on,
fine.
Allie.
I know.
You a
Dang it.
thespian or what? It's fine. I'm pretty sure I did that. I'm pretty sure I called something like a show or like a film
Yeah.
a couple episodes ago.
Film.
And I'm still not recovered from that.
I shouldn't have said anything. Nobody would have noticed. But I would have known. Okay, so some of the themes are government control.
Ooh.
This is represented in the kind of dictatorship and tyrantness of Caldwell B. Cladwell. He is kind of this classic, archetypal, greedy, rich tyrant who exploits the poor. We've seen that before.
It's really interesting to see because the uprising with Bobby and everything is definitely a socialistic uprising.
Mm-hmm.
Which we all know the joys of communism and all of that and where that leads. And so it's really interesting because, like, both sides are messed up.
Yeah.
Like, the rich and their tyrannical rule of everything with Cladwell and being able to control everything. But also, we know socialism doesn't work.
Yeah.
So it's, like, really interesting to see. I mean, the whole point of the show is that it's a struggle.
Yeah,
And the last
either way.
line with Malthus, which we'll get into, of, you know, humans are going to bring their downfall.
Yeah.
kind of thing. It's
For
rough.
real. Yeah, it's
Yeah,
wild.
that's what I was gonna call it. I think the dictatorship and the uprising thing kind of have to be looked at, which I know we'll get into. At least for me, I always view them simultaneously because it's kind of a give and take thing of society. Also, want to point out that Caldwell B. Cladwell is not a politician at all in this. Like, is not like a greedy, tyrannical ruler. He's a businessman, and I think that's
Yeah.
very, very interesting.
Yeah.
Especially in our present day, there are multiple rich business owners in the spotlight that have significant influence and sometimes are
Wow.
more or less or better or worse than other politicians as well.
Yeah.
Sure.
I mean, there's plot points where it's literally Phipp, who is the senator getting bribes from Cladwell. And, like, there's a whole relationship there. And that's how Cladwell has kept his power by bribing the senators and everything.
Beaches of Rio slideshow certainly changed their mind.
Was that an issue during rehearsal? Robert
The Beaches of
pronouncing that
Rio
well?
slideshow?
No, because I didn't catch that could have been taken differently.
Oh, no, I wasn't even thinking about that. The first or second time that he read it, there was a laugh from our directorial team that told me that there's a lot of implications perhaps of the nature of that slideshow.
Oh, yeah? I mean, yeah.
Of what part of the beaches was featured in that slideshow. There's a lot of implication there that just somebody laughed at. And I was like, and now I think of it every time that someone says that he says the line.
Yeah. So moving on to another theme, which is corrupt politicians, other people of power in a society, people exploiting the power that they have over people who are not in power. I mean, I think that's a pretty obvious one with the police officers and the and Cladwell, you know, just kind of exerting their power.
Two men. Yeah.
Amazing.
Yeah, no, I agree with that.
But we have the nightsticks.
That's exactly. Yeah, exactly.
There's some police commentary in there too.
There's definitely some, and again, it's all kind of thinly veiled under this comedy, but it's very real.
It's hysterical.
Like it is
hysterical.
People will barely come to see a show called Urinetown the Musical. I don't think anybody would come to just a pure political commentary. You had to make it funny.
Sure. Very.
Otherwise,
very
like
much
if it's not a comedy, it's too in the face. It's too direct. All the themes and everything are
too much.
So straightforward and explicit that.
And it's very that Guise of Comedy is to our current.
That Guise of Comedy is the only way you sell that without getting your theater burned down.
Yeah. Otherwise, it's just like watching the news.
It's rough.
Yeah, very rough. So I think my favorite theme that it explores is resistance and the implication of revolution. Or the implications, there are multiple. This one is most interesting to me because so often in these kinds of stories, the heroes win out and then you don't really see anything past that. They win out and everything turns out great and they get their happily ever after and the good guys won, yay. But sometimes the good guys, while they have the best intentions and hearts of gold, don't always think things through. And we see that at the end of this musical. I don't know how much you guys are wanting to spoil, but...
And the general plot is that, big government business control. There is a rebellion wanting to pee for free. And then things devolve from there. Yeah. We were just talking about this the other day about again, people having a plan. We were just talking about this last night actually about AI and stuff. And I was saying how I feel like AI and technology is advancing faster than society has a plan for it. Like we're just throwing it out there but we don't know actually what to do with it. And that's a big thing that gets explored here that happens on the political scale. And I think we see this on both sides with people that want good things accomplished. You know, they want something that is going to better society, but they're thinking of it in terms of right now and the most like dramatic way that they can.
What if tomorrow, Mr. Strong?
But what if
tomorrow?
It can be a good thing to pursue, and I think the rebels pursue a very good thing, but as the theme plays out, they don't have a plan for what to do once they've won.
Exactly. It has to do with, I think, a pendulum swing. We see that throughout history where the pendulum will swing to one far extreme and then it will swing to the other far extreme, when really most everything is about balance. And so at the end of the musical, they swing to the other extreme and they're letting people just have, free reign in anything they want, and that can't be how it works either, you know?
The problem with the two-party system.
George Washington
He warned us.
Don't split into parties, and what did we do?
What did we do? Urinetown.
Oh my gosh. What is Urinetown? Urinetown's a tool.
All of this brings us to Malthus. And Malthusianism. Malthusianism. Basically,
not enthusiasm.
I'm reading directly from the Wikipedia page. Just FYI. Malthusianism is the theory that population growth is potentially exponential. By the Malthusian growth model, while the growth of food supply or other resources is linear, which eventually reduces living standards to the point of triggering a population decline. Basically, when there are so many people, supply and demand becomes impossible to fulfill, therefore triggering a catastrophic event which declines the population. Basically, the natural order of things. if you will, Mother Nature taking over.
Makes perfect sense.
It does. It makes perfect sense.
It's just kind of how biospheres interact with each other.
Yeah.
If things become too out of control, something comes to keep it in check. And that is, I think, it's explicitly stated in the musical that is a theme. Malthus is named directly.
Yeah. That's literally the closing line of the musical.
Closing line.
Because, I mean, the whole point is that, you know, as just you're destined to downfall. You know?
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't even think... Sorry.
Go ahead, I was done.
Okay. I don't even think it's necessarily a commentary directly on, like, human resources. You can make it that way. That's the direct one. But, like, I think it that Malthusianism in this production, at least to me, just speaks to the fact that man will always be inclined towards disorder.
Yeah.
In our human nature, we are inclined towards disorder and messiness and things. And what's the other? The law of entropy. Like, things just keep getting more and more disorderly because that's the human nature. We can't make anything good of ourselves outside of Jesus. You know, but like, we can't make it like, we're just always going to be going towards chaos.
Yeah, exactly. Or like one person or one group being in control of everything, it brings on the Malthusian
the dark side of capitalism.
Everything in moderation.
Yeah.
Everything in moderation.
Everything in balance.
Balance. Yep.
Wow.
So, I know. Isn't it crazy? Ultimately,
like having those realizations in my real life just every day.
Like, really though.
So ultimately, I think this show kind of serves as a warning. Obviously, the end is kind of shocking a little bit. You really root for these guys, and they just don't know what they're doing, really.
Especially that whole second act is just shock factor. Like, it gets even more explicit in its theme afterwards.
Yeah.
And like,
very much. But ultimately, it explores the perils, the most common societal structures and government systems, focuses on people that are affected by it, real people that are affected by it. That's one of the things that makes it unique. Yeah. Is that it's a satire of these political systems, but it really focuses on how it affects people's individual lives.
Like the individual people,
Yeah, and with the archetype people that Mo talked about in our last episode, like the archetype people that are in the ensemble, you can see every man. Like, you should be able to find somebody in that, like, rebel pool that you identify with.
Yeah.
I mean, also with it literally being about urination, it's such, like, everyone pees. And so it's like, it hits home a little more because you're like, oh, I don't have to deal with that in my daily life. Like, I don't have to go out and forage for food kind of thing.
But
like,
you do have to pee.
But you do have to pee. Everyone has to pee.
You have to.
Yeah.
We all had to before we started recording.
Yes, we did. All right. Segueing into a little slightly more fun satire of the show.
Let's make this happier.
It satirizes theater and musical theater itself. So, you guys obviously know the show more intimately than I do. But I mean, I've seen the show once, so I know what's going on. The most obvious satire of musical theater comes with Officer Lockstock and Little Sally and their narration. They break the fourth wall constantly.
All the time. The whole cast breaks the fourth wall.
The whole cast breaks the fourth wall. But but what I remember, what stood out to me was Little Sally and Officer Lockstock, because they break the fourth wall. They make the cheekiest remarks.
He loves her, doesn't he, Officer Lockstock?
The show. She has to love him. Yeah, not only breaking the fourth wall, but directly calling out the devices and like elements in the show that are making it theater. Like, it's nothing's hidden.
They remark on the show and the script itself, and on the characters that they're interacting with.
Opening lines are like a poor subject matter or a sad title could also kill a show pretty bad, and Officer Lockstock's like, Yep.
Like
it's a wonder we're filling seats.
You know it's called Urinetown. You know it's a crazy name and a silly premise. But again, that like blanket of comedy that allows you to be so direct is it's a show that doesn't try to take itself seriously either. And again,
which helps a lot with the darker themes.
Again, yeah,
because it
comedy
balances
allows
it really
it to
well.
be so direct.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Sorry, I kind of cut you off there.
What are some of the ways that you guys see musical theater, or just theater in general, satirized?
Like we said in the last podcast, almost every song has some melody or bit in it that I'm like, that's the Newsies tune, or like that's such and such. Oh my gosh, not even, because our choreographer Logan has added like several things that are specific callbacks to different musical stuff, and Nathaniel can talk about those because we have those listed. But like even the literally written music has snippets that are like, oh my gosh, I know exactly what that's referencing. Yeah.
It's so funny. It's kind of like in Something Rotten. Yeah. The whole musical number is which I think is so funny that happens so often.
Yeah. I think the difference is that Something Rotten is it's all of the references are written in the script. Like that's the point of the show is to hold many direct references. Versus there's a couple in the script here, but a lot of it is up to the choreographer, and Logan would listen to the music and find things that he wanted to reference and then bring them out.
The Newsies thing, the boys are doing with doing leaps and stuff with little poles, and I'm like, oh my god, that's just like Newsies.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. There's some West Side Story moment. There's a lot of Chicago moments.
A lot of Chicago moments.
Chicago.
We have fans. Ooh, I love a good feather fan. Yeah. Love it.
There's a fiddler reference.
That I'm gonna take a pause and talk about costuming with the fiddler reference, because I'm gonna go ahead and spoil that, because we have bottle dancing hats. Bottle hat dancers, whatever it's called. I don't know what it's called.
Dancers with hats bottles on top of the hats.
And bottles. And I was told, Noel, find 3 hats that match the vibe of the show, and I found them. And then our props director, I don't know. And then our props director glued on empty mayonnaise jars, because we can't actually have glass bottles on these boys' heads. No. And he tried doing several things. I think this is really interesting, the progression of this. He tried putting colored lights in there because we wanted it to look like pee, like they were dancing with pee bottles on their head.
Genius.
Yeah, great, loved it.
Yeah.
So he put like little yellow fairy lights in there. That didn't work. He put cellophane in there, but it didn't read well on stage. And so last night, our opening night, he just put green water in there, and so these boys are sloshing around, and it's a wonder. But they stayed on their heads. It was a great time.
There you go.
It was really good. It was awesome. Really well done.
Yeah, I remember hearing that conversation about they needed the added weight over there. That's been, side note, a really interesting thing. You talk about reading. I think what I've gotten from Rick, our director, hearing his notes a lot this show has been about like adjusting to space. Like several times he's been like, okay, this joke that we did, it read really, really well in the studio, but it's not reading here, so it needs to be bigger, or we need to change it or something. And that's just been a really cool, like, little thing that I've been able to kind of learn about understanding how to make something read, or what reads, what doesn't. Interpreting that in space and adapting, because theater's always changing.
In college we rehearsed directly on the stage because Evangel doesn't have rehearsal space. So that was really interesting coming out of college and into different theater spaces of like the whole rehearsing in the studio and moving into this performance.
I hadn't thought about that. That is a relatively new thing.
It is
for us out of college. Like,
granted, I think about that and how it's read on stage because I'm thinking about makeup and costumes and things, and how you can get away with stuff at a distance versus up close kind of things. Because last night I was sitting way back in the back of the theater, and several of the things that I thought were totally substantial and able to be seen were not seen at all. So I'm like, I'm gonna have to go and re-dirty that shirt because it just looks like a white shirt from here.
Wild.
The good thing though is that because of where the sound booth is right now, most of the seating, like that entire back half of the house
we're only selling seats from the sound booth
isn't open for seating. So that
I didn't have a ticket because I was just chilling. So
but it is a really big, it is a really large space. Like it's definitely, it's larger, I think wider if anything, than the Landers.
It's very wide,
than what we had, and also it's a larger.
He's done a great job of lighting it as well.
Lighting design is so good. Those lighting cues are so good.
I know, it's a great time. I've noticed we've unintentionally, like, he told me the colors and the washes and things that he was going for at the beginning of the design process, but I love how we've both independently designed things that vibe so well together. Our Cladwell scenes and our UGC office scenes are both with this green theme, and granted, the green theme for me was added a lot later than the green theme for him. But it looks like we planned it. And I love when that happens in theater.
Green is for greed.
Yeah. And money. Money.
Anyways.
Sorry, side note.
No, that's a really good segue, because now we're going to talk about costuming and process
fantastic.
and everything. So I don't think you've told us on this podcast yet your kind of costuming process.
My process?
Yeah, your process.
Well, I'm still a baby in the costuming world, so I'm still honestly figuring out my process. But this has been the calmest process that I've had, and there's only been a few hiccups, which has been really nice. I showed up to my first couple of production meetings with the design team and our directors and stuff. Which is some basic ideas. Like, I had seen the show before, and so I knew the vibe and stuff. And Rick, our director, provided a lot of reference material and stuff that he was looking at and things. And then he would tell me specifically, hey, this is the vibe for this. And then since the show's kind of not in a specific time setting, I didn't necessarily... This is really interesting. I was, like, asking costumers this. If they sit down and outright draw the costume and then costume based on that, or if they go, which is what I've been doing the past few shows, this is the vibe, and I make like a mood board with like ideas and stuff, and then see what we have to fit that vibe. Because a lot of the stuff that we're doing for Urinetown was, okay, so Caldwell B. Cladwell, bougie, rich man, dictator kind of vibe. And so I wanted him to look the crispest on stage and really cool. And so I just had some basic notes and stuff, and then went through and looked at our costume stock and said, this suit is going to fit him so well, and I want that, and I pulled it, and then it was fine. I didn't sit down and draw him out in a suit. And like, as one of the things that I should have done would probably, as I had settled on decisions on my end of things, communicated more with our directors about that, but it was just quick timing and I totally forgot.
Because the show was a really fast turnaround.
It was a very fast turnaround. Because our tech week was the first time a lot of the costumes had been seen by the directors, and so it was a lot of like, actually, I don't really like that. Which is fine and very doable. Very doable. And so from that point, we swapped some things around, which is nice, because I didn't have this idolized design image in my mind that I was absolutely going for above all else. I just had some thoughts and feelings and vibes and stuff. Yeah,
I like that. Cool.
Yeah, there was a couple of things where I absolutely did have an image in my mind. Like, I wanted Cladwell in those white shoes.
Sure.
Because I said, those are some bougie shoes. Yep. He needs some bougie shoes. The cops, like Nathaniel and Heath, are lock, stock. I wanted them to have a very specific look because, I mean, they have to play police officers. And then I didn't want them looking like early 1900s police officers, but I didn't want them looking like modern police officers. Sure. It's somewhere in the middle there. Also, since it's a huge ensemble number, I also had to think, how can I dumb down this costume for our ensemble to also have all the same pieces? That was interesting to do. Yeah. All the quick changes for the show were they took a while because it was just a lot of zippers and buttons and things, but it was good. It was a great time.
I realized last night, looking in the mirror, I was like, all right, what do I look like? if you've seen Home Alone.
I was thinking that. Oh my gosh, I was literally gonna say 80s, 90s
if
cops.
You've seen Home Alone.
Yep.
Harry's cop disguise in the beginning of the movie.
That is exactly what you look like.
I was looking in the mirror because like it's a typical looking guy, and I'm looking in the mirror and I'm like, what do I look like? Harry from Home Alone.
It was the New York City police officers. That was the look
80s,
I was
early 90s.
Leather jacket and everything.
Yep.
Yep.
That made me laugh.
I looked at Heath the other day and leaned over to our hair and makeup designer and said, he looks like Barney Fife.
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah. Because he keeps
Barney
his hat
Fife
to the side.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I actually keeps adjusting his hat because.
Yeah. Another good segue. A lot of the most, if not all of the characters in this show are very archetypal. Their characters kind of set in stone. You know, you see it in a lot of stories. So they're bound to have very recognizable looks, generally recognizable character traits. So how did you stay true to their archetypal character traits and looks and vibes and that kind of thing, but also still make it your own unique interpretation of the show?
Yeah. We always, when you say a word, there's usually something that pops into your mind first. And so when I was going through the script and writing down my thoughts and ideas and stuff, it was a lot of, okay, Cladwell, bougie man. He needs some nice shoes. He needs a crisp suit. The cops, they need to look scary and kind of greasy and grimy and gross. And so it was just thinking through that. Hope is this beautiful daughter of this very rich man, and she has to look like the heroine of the story, but she also has to fit into this time period that we have created. Her costumes were, I think, the most difficult for me because she does have to be the heroine and has to look a specific way. And so it was finding things that didn't make her lean too far on the spectrum because she is this middle ground character who, participates in the rebellion.
Sure.
And so it was finding like looks that made her look crisp, but could also fit in with the poor at the end.
Wow.
Yeah.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Very
also, a lot of the poor costumes, like the poor ensemble costumes, were all of the leftover costumes from the last time they did it. And I just, took them in or let them out a little bit and put some patches and things on it to make it my own. And
Dang,
so it was a lot of fun. Yeah.
Yeah, that's very cool.
Little Sally wore the exact same dress as she did 15 years ago.
That's so funny. Yeah. Oh my gosh. I didn't know that. That's awesome.
Yeah.
So I think a lot of that worked to your advantage.
It did.
Yeah. Even
a
just
lot of work
the
off
design and choices, Rick already having that. I remember hearing about that.
Yeah, that was really nice.
Having
because,
the previous show to pull from.
Rick was able to show me, actually, let me show you some pictures of the last time we did it. I'd be like, okay, I'm heading in the right direction.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Which is nice.
Yeah. So getting into kind of more the nitty gritty, alterations and fittings, and you had to distress some clothing for the show. How long does that take, first of all? And just how do you do that? Because I have no idea where I'd even start.
I'm still learning, and I think in the future I will have a better process to do fittings and things. In the first few rehearsals, I took measurements of people just to get a general idea of people's body shapes and sizes and stuff so that I could start pulling things and adjust stuff. I only did 1 or 2 fittings after that before they wore it for dress rehearsals, which I probably could have used a little more time to have people try things on and stuff. But it was doable. It was very doable.
Yeah.
Cool. Yeah, for distressing, I really like using paint. I know it's not the most permanent situation because, it's a lot easier to use dye and bleach and really actually adjust the fabric itself. But I was on a time crunch and I just used acrylic paint and just...
Awesome.
Yeah.
And, I mean, from kind of the rule in theaters that it doesn't have to look good up close. It just has to look good from 40 feet away.
Especially this house that's like 10, 15 feet from the edge of the stage to the first row. There's a huge front aisle there. So you got lots of space to work with.
For Bobby and Pennywise's jumpsuits, because they're in UGC worker uniforms, that was a lot of alterations on her suit to be able to, because I don't want to put a female actress, that's redundant. I don't want to put an actress in a potato sack of a costume that's going to make her feel gross, you know? But I wanted her in this jumpsuit. So when I fitted her the first time after I ordered this jumpsuit, because it fit her almost perfectly height-wise and width-wise, I did go in and take in the sides and, you know, kind of thinned the legs out a little bit to give her some shape. She tried it on the night of our first dress rehearsal, and she goes, "Noel, I'm sorry. They've added a dance move where I literally drop it like it's hot, and I cannot squat in these pants anymore." And I go, "No worries." And I took my seam ripper and just seam ripped all the leg seams that I had put in. She was like, "I'm so sorry." I'm like, "Honey, don't worry about it. Don't worry about it." My whole thing is I don't want anything that I'm doing as a costumer to distract you or the audience from your performance and you telling the story.
Yes.
I want to make sure that you are as comfortable and well prepared and taken care of as I can do so that you can tell the story well.
That was one of the things that I remember from our costume design class in college, was that we did learn that the costumes shouldn't take away from the actual performance of the actor. They should add to it, but not add to it so much that like, again, the pendulum thing, you can't have one extreme or the other. It has to be in the middle. Like, it has to add to the performance in a good way, but not distract from it. And it sounds like you're doing a good job of that.
Thank you. Yeah. I brought up Penny's costume because I had to just stress both of these jumpsuits, and I just ended up taking a light colored paint and like going over some of the like wear spots. If you think about where hands will touch on a garment, that's been really interesting to learn recently, like through YouTube videos and stuff, of thinking, because I've been watching a lot of conservation videos from like history museums and things. Adam Savage also did a video with like a reconstruction artist of things, of like, you think about how clothes hang in a closet where they'll all have like a shoulder mark where they just hang on a hanger, and that's the only spot that they'll get rubbed, or like in pockets and things. And that was, I love doing things like that. And again, it's really the cool detail that if I was doing something for an up close performance, I would do way differently than I did for this performance, because I mean, you're in the Fox and it's a distance. It's
different.
It's still fun.
Very cool.
Thank you.
Maybe now we'll shift to Nathaniel and acting things. Because it's different roles, so it's exciting to talk about. You want to tell them a little bit about your role, who you play, and what you do?
I play, we've already mentioned Officer Lockstock, who is the narrator, kind of lead bit, and I play his trusty sidekick, Officer Barrel. And you can put those two together. So many puns in this show. So he's the sidekick to Lockstock. The cops in the show are very much the bad guys, working for Cladwell, enforcing they say enforcing the law. They really just enforce the urination laws. Catching people peeing and hauling them off to Urinetown. Whatever that is.
Bucket and a mop. Shovel and a mop.
There is a
barrel,
whole,
shovel and a mop.
Much of the show is spent wondering what Urinetown is. And so, we do that. Again, sidekick vibes. I've played a very kind of enthusiastic, newish guy on the job, but very, like, set in like has bought Cladwell's message, hook, line, and sinker. Is all in, and very much despises Bobby Strong. I mean, I've put a whole inner monologue back in my head that doesn't come out, but just to help me.
Yep.
His first name is Kyle because the hat I have him in
has a piece of
tape in the top.
Kyle
said Kyle.
Except
Kyle Barrel.
Except Lockstock and I switched hats. Remember during tech because his was too big. So I am no longer. My new one doesn't have tape in it.
No.
So you want me to swap the tape?
It's Kyle Lockstock now, and
Kyle.
just Officer is my first name. Now, yeah. I don't know what else you're going to ask me before I just spew on about my character. So.
I am going to ask you the same question as I asked Noel about all of the characters are archetypal and how did you stay true to that, but also create your own unique thing.
Yeah. I think Beryl had a lot of freedom. I think definitely, I was definitely not the focus of like the director's creation early on. They're focused on Lockstock and Bobby and Hope and Penny and all.
Yeah.
So I had a lot of freedom to come up with that. So if you heard the last episode, I talked about, I decided to go with a very greasy F-boy character who is just gross and very full of himself, very confident that he is right and on the right side, but just really, really gross in that. And like I was saying, I put this whole kind of backstory in my head to help me out of saying like, okay, Beryl seems like he's this character that is kind of new on the job, new on the police force, maybe like in his first year, but like maybe 8 or 9 months in. So like he knows the routine now. He knows he obviously knows what's going on. It's very clear, but like maybe he's still a little bit green kind of thing. And so then I had to think, okay, where was he before that? And so I put this backstory in my head of like, he was one of the poor. Maybe he knew Bobby previously and was like, this boy gets all the good stuff, like, and just had this, and none of this story comes out on stage, but when we're having these big numbers on stage where Lockstock and I are hauling Bobby off, or we're singing at Bobby in the Act 1 finale, that has provided me a lot of source for some of the like anger and malice and anger towards the poor of like, I used to be one of you guys and I hate you now. Like you are so wrong. That kind of that little kind of thing. Very like Javert-esque self-righteousness without Javert's like experience level.
Tell us about your character playlist that you made.
I made a playlist. I started doing this.
He's so excited.
I was responding to you. I was reacting to you, acting.
Acting.
I started doing this with my last show with Phil in White Christmas, and actually, hold on a second.
I didn't know you made one for Phil.
I didn't.
Oh,
sorry. I get some liquid down my throat. I was going to make one for Phil with White Christmas, and what I ended up just doing was I found a playlist on Spotify of 50s holiday music.
Yep.
And so I just listened to that, because what I think this is something I'm going to keep doing with future characters. So when I went to Beryl, and I try to think of just like, what would this character listen to? Not just necessarily something that's like the same theme, but what would this character listen to? And then I stick my headphones in and I'm listening to that when I walk into the theater, when I'm putting on makeup, getting ready. It just kind of becomes part of my pre-show routine. Cool. So Beryl has a it's like an angsty rock, upbeat angsty rock and roll kind of thing. It started with Ludo, a lot of Ludo.
Yeah.
There is some older 80s, well, I'm gonna get the decade wrong, but there's that old like classic rock stuff of some AC/DC, Guns N' Roses kind of stuff. That's just this kind of anything that's grungy and prideful. A little bit of pop stuff.
Did you leave in that Taylor Swift song?
I did leave in that Taylor Swift song.
Which Taylor Swift song?
I cannot say the name of it on this podcast because it is not a family-friendly name. Okay. But it's definitely a vibe and a pop groove that Beryl would listen to, and so
amazing.
I have listened to that. There's a Rihanna song on there. Anything with attitude, basically.
Yeah, awesome.
I just kind of pictured Beryl leaning up against like a wall with his headphones in, just
jamming,
vibing to stuff.
Vibing. On his like MP3 player.
On his definitely an MP3 or something.
Like a Walkman.
Yeah, a Walkman. Oh yeah, like on a mixtape.
Yeah,
so much.
Yeah, but all in all, the inspiration for Beryl kind of.
I should add a Walkman to your police belt. That would be hysterical.
I got enough things trying to pull my pants down mid-show right now.
Including lock stock. What?
No.
Okay.
No.
Speaking of comedy and funny things, the whole dang show is funny. Right? Like
the whole dang
every
show
other
is
line
hysterical,
is comedic. How have you and the other actors like kept that fresh? Like how do you just keep it not like flat the whole time? Because I mean, it's funny, but at the same time you have to do new things with it and fresh things with it, or else it's just gonna be
Before you answer that, thankfully, me, Mo, Logan, and Rick all still find it hysterical, so we're still cackling in the audience.
And honestly, I was gonna say that's been really helpful because other directors that I've worked with, they get used to the show and they're not as vocal, or especially during tech and stuff, they're focused on other things.
Sure.
So it's been really nice that our team is still. They're laughing at fewer and fewer spots, but because they're used to it. But that has been very helpful. Again, something that I wouldn't say I quite grasped it during White Christmas, but I figured it out because of White Christmas. Is how to handle that kind of comedy acting. A big thing, I think the biggest thing with just any sort of comedy acting is that the character and the actor has to be dead serious about it. You can't anticipate that it's funny or go into a bit thinking this is a funny bit. Whatever you're doing has to be dead serious for your character.
I think about
this is reality. This is
Don't Be the Bunny. When you guys are dancing, literally hopping around on stage, and everyone is deadpan.
Because we have to be dead, and that was part of with that scene with Don't Be the Bunny. What Logan told us was this needs to be like, this is a routine for you guys. You've sung this song to you've sung this song to us, new UGC candidates before. Like, play it like a routine.
Dang.
So, like that, like I even like will mouth to like to Lockstock or something like, I remember when they did this for me, like kind of thing. That's the thing. Like, it has to be very serious for you. As far as keeping it fresh, it, and I think since we're in first weekend right now, that's something that we figure out and learn along the way, because you always have to listen and be ready for the laughter and the comedy, but you never know where the audience is going to laugh, if they're going to laugh. You never know. Literally from preview night to opening night, laughter was pretty much in the complete opposite pockets.
I was going to talk about that. That was so interesting. We had a big group of high school theater students.
Missouri Fine Arts kids.
They came to see the show for preview night, and the things that they laughed at versus the things that our older audience last night laughed at, wildly different.
Like, it was almost complete mirror image.
Wow.
The pocket
it was
thing.
Fascinating. What a commentary on generational humor.
Between it, everything's been laughed at now. But like, you have to just listen and anticipate for that, because you never know, and you may have a good audience, you may have a bad audience. We had that again with White Christmas, especially the range of audiences that we had was so crazy.
Oh man,
and so a lot of it is just, your track and your stuff 100% down. It needs to be second nature, and you commit to it fully, and then you just have to be listening for what's going on out there of whether or not they give you something to feed into.
Wow. And man, sometimes audiences can just be
rough.
dead.
They can be rough.
Really nice to see the cast being able to feed off the audience energy, though, especially with preview after you perform it so much, and then dress rehearsals, it's still the same old crew that's there, and so to actually get an audience and to see them perform, like they lit up.
A good audience energy literally changes a show. It changes the way you perform.
Yeah, I mean, I'll get ideas literally in the 2 shows that we've done with an audience. Like, I'll get a different on stage, a split-second different idea for how to deliver a line or how to do a bit based on how the audience has responded. Like, I've done it the same way the last 2 weeks of rehearsal, but suddenly this audience is feeding an energy that sparks an idea.
That's so
or something, and you might play with it, and it may read, it might not read, and you
but
figure
that's
out
live
by the
theater.
next show.
Yeah.
Also, that you're never done figuring out how to do the show. Like once we have 3 weekends of show, and how I did it week 1 versus how I'm going to do it week 3 is going to be different. Because the audience is your big test of, is this working? And so you figure it out. You keep growing.
Very cool. Very cool. Well, that ends our chat for today.
Just said, shut up, Nathaniel.
No, I just thought we'd find a good stopping point because we could talk forever.
We could talk for a while.
So Urinetown runs for 3 weekends. By the time this comes out, I think it'll have there'll be one weekend left. So you do not want to miss your chance to see it. It's hilarious and it's gonna be amazing. So it runs through July 2nd. You can get tickets at springfieldcontemporarytheater.org. And I just highly recommend that. Support a local theater, please.
That's theater RE.
Theater RE.
THEATRE,
yes,
not
I should have mentioned
ER.
that.
If you want to get to the correct website.
You just Google it.
Just Google.
Yeah,
just
honestly,
Google Springfield Contemporary.
Google Urinetown. There's probably not that many productions of it going on right now.
Probably not.
It turns out there's thousands.
Urinetown, Springfield.
Everybody's doing it.
It's been done a lot in Springfield.
It has been.
Apparently, this is a really good location.
Drury has done it. MSU has done it.
Central High School has done it twice.
Yeah. Now SCT
What does that
has
say about
twice.
Springfield?
We like our pee.
We're a piss town. Yeah.
We're politically minded.
I love my city very much.
I love Springfield.
And I love you
very
much.
Alrighty. So next episode is our season finale. Woo! It's gonna be good. We're gonna be talking about the upcoming theater seasons in the community. It's gonna be really fun. We're so excited. So please tune in for that. I think we're done. Yay. Okay.
Yeah. A couple other shows that are coming up as well. MSU's, if you're in the Springfield area, MSU's 10th theater season is open with Anything Goes, which is running through July 1st. And then right on the heels of that, July 7th through 14th, they have, I wrote this down really badly, Baskerville, a Sherlock mystery, some sort of Sherlock mystery thing,
spooky.
Running 2 weekends after that. So check that out.
Yeah.
That's a new, they just got that built and all, so this is their first season with that.
Yeah.
That's really cool.
Yeah, it is very cool. So nice. Alrighty. Thank you for joining us, and we'll see you guys next time. Bye. Thank you for listening to the Thank You Places podcast.
If you liked what you heard, please take a moment to rate and review the podcast and share it with your friends.
For more information and to stay up to date, check out Thank You Places on Facebook and follow us on Instagram at Thank You Places Troupe. That's TROUPE.
Once again, thanks for joining us, and we'll see you soon.